My son, Marcus, had ghosted me for nearly 14 years until whispers of my recent financial windfall reached his ears. He appeared at my doorstep, flanked by his impeccably dressed but decidedly useless partner, Serafina, and an array of designer luggage. "As your only child, Mother, I'm naturally entitled to a portion of this," he declared, his gaze sweeping over my residence. "We're moving in. You clearly have more than enough room." A slow, deliberate smile touched my lips as I braced myself to finally execute a decision I should have made long ago. The sheer gall of it hit me with the force of a tidal wave. Marcus, standing there with his expensive baggage and that familiar predatory gleam in his eyes, surveyed my home as if mentally redecorating. "We're moving in. There's plenty of space here for all of us." 14 years of absolute silence, and this was his grand declaration of return. I suppose I should explain how we arrived at this moment, how my own flesh and blood could appear on my threshold after more than a decade of treating me as if I'd vanished from the earth, now demanding a piece of the prosperity he'd only just discovered. But first, let me share what happened next, because some confrontations are best savored. I met Marcus's gaze, then flicked my eyes to Serafina, who hovered slightly behind him, her expression a mixture of feigned concern and thinly veiled greed, as if anticipating a scene. "Well, isn't this unexpected?" I said, my voice as unyielding as tempered steel. Marcus's practiced smirk wavered. He hadn't anticipated my composure. He was undoubtedly expecting the distraught, grateful matriarch he'd so carelessly discarded. "Mom, we've been giving it a lot of thought," he began, but I raised a hand, stopping him mid-sentence. "Marcus, dearest," I interjected, using the very same tone I'd employed when he was 7 and had attempted to redecorate my antique mahogany table with crayons. "Before another word escapes your lips, there's something imperative you understand about your mother." I paused, allowing my gaze to linger on his face. I've learned a profound amount about human nature in these 14 years, especially concerning kin who materialize only when a financial opportunity presents itself. Serafina then glided forward, her smile as artificial as the glimmering stones on her necklace. "Elena, we both acknowledge there's been some distance, but family bonds are paramount, aren't they? We truly want to rekindle our connection." "Rekindle?" A genuine guttural laugh escaped me, and it felt exhilarating. "My dear, one cannot rekindle something that was deliberately reduced to ashes." My eyes moved between them, two elegant predators circling what they mistook for easy prey. "But please do come in. Let's discuss family bonds. Let's talk about entitlement. Let's talk about precisely what you believe you're owed from me." As they rolled their opulent suitcases past me into the sun-drenched foyer, I caught Marcus's reflection in the hall mirror. For a fleeting instant, a flicker of uncertainty crossed his features. Excellent. Because what he was about to discover would strip away that ingrained arrogance piece by piece. The true question wasn't whether I'd allow them to remain. The real question was whether they would desire to depart once they fully comprehended the individual they were truly dealing with. "This place is cozier than I imagined," Serafina announced, her eyes already dissecting the layout, mentally appraising potential upgrades. She wore that distinct expression women adopt when mentally transforming someone else's living space. Marcus, meanwhile, was conducting his own silent audit, appraising every fixture and furnishing as if already preparing for an auction. If these two imagined they were confronting the same vulnerable woman who'd once yearned for their fleeting attention 14 years prior, they were in for a rude awakening that would undoubtedly dislodge their carefully cultivated personas. I guided them into the spacious yet unassuming living room, the very room where Marcus had delivered his cruel final words all those years ago. "Please sit," I said, gesturing towards the bespoke velvet sofa. "Let's truly catch up." The rich irony wasn't lost on me. This was likely the first occasion in his adult life that Marcus was willingly following one of my directives. "We were so distressed to hear about your sudden prosperity," Serafina began, clearly assigned the role of eloquent emissary for their little expedition. "Marcus has been absolutely beside himself with worry, haven't you, darling?" Marcus nodded with the rehearsed sincerity of a professional actor. "I have, Mother. When I learned about your acquisition, I immediately thought it unwise for you to manage such a substantial sum on your own. It's truly quite perilous. People might try to—" My lip curled slightly. "Safeguard?" I echoed, my voice dripping with honeyed skepticism. Is that the contemporary term for reappearing after 13 years of radio silence, only to declare immediate residency and a vested interest in funds you had no hand in cultivating? Marcus shifted uneasily, his gaze skittering past me. "No, Elena, it's not like that," he insisted, his tone a touch too eager. "This is about filial duty, about ensuring your newfound prosperity is managed wisely, that you're shielded from any unscrupulous elements." Shielded. I placed my porcelain teacup back on its saucer with a delicate clink. "Marcus," I began, my gaze unwavering, "do you recall the precise terms you used a little over a decade ago? You informed me I was an impediment to your ascension, that successful individuals don't encumber themselves with extraneous burdens. And I, apparently, was your burden. You called me excess baggage." The carefully constructed composure on his face evaporated, leaving a pale, raw vulnerability. Serafina's carefully painted smile faltered, a mere ripple in her otherwise perfect facade. "That was different," Marcus stammered, clearing his throat. "I was under immense pressure then, navigating new ventures." "You were 32. I cut him off, my voice steady and precise. "Hardly an impressionable youth. Ample age to grasp that pronouncements carry weight and that certain thresholds once definitively crossed do not simply reset themselves when convenience dictates." Serafina, ever the diplomat, smoothed her silk dress. "Elena, darling, we all utter regrettable sentiments when life's demands become overwhelming," she chimed in, her tone a masterclass in performative empathy. "What truly signifies is our presence here, now, eager to forge a renewed family connection." Renewed family. The words were a bitter pill, especially from the woman who had so diligently assisted Marcus in my complete excision from their world. As I observed the pair perched stiffly on my antique sofa, a sensation both potent and profoundly satisfying bloomed within me, unassailable authority. For the first time, they were the supplicants, and I was the sole arbiter of their desired future. The entire deck of cards lay firmly in my grasp. I leaned back, a faint smile playing on my lips. "So," I prompted, "let's quantify this filial duty. Precisely what fraction of my recent prosperity do you envision as your rightful claim?" Marcus and Serafina exchanged a glance, a swift, almost imperceptible flicker of communication, a silent, synchronized cue I recognized instantly. It was the same conspiratorial signal they'd always employed before launching a united front, a tag-team maneuver designed to dismantle opposition. The difference now was that I wasn't the unsuspecting victim. "It's not about entitlement, Elena," Marcus declared, attempting a sincere expression that dissolved into something utterly unconvincing. "It's about our inherent bond, about safeguarding you from potential exploitation, ensuring this wealth doesn't alter your essence or expose you to nefarious influences." "Nefarious influences?" I echoed, my eyebrow arching slightly. "Are you perhaps referring to individuals such as a son and his partner who conveniently vanished the moment my perceived utility evaporated?" Serafina's carefully constructed pleasantries fractured for an instant, revealing a flash of something cold and calculating in her eyes. "Elena, we comprehend your feelings," she swiftly recovered, "but our focus is your welfare, your long-term stability. This significant sum could secure your future if managed with proper foresight." "Managed properly," I mused aloud. "By whom, pray tell? The very pair who couldn't manage a simple birthday greeting for over a decade." Marcus squirmed, his polished facade cracking further. "We've been intensely focused on establishing our careers, our trajectory," he mumbled, avoiding my gaze. "Priorities, you understand." "Ah, priorities," I responded, rising gracefully and walking toward the large bay window, my back to them, surveying the meticulously tended rose garden. "And now, by some remarkable coincidence, I've reemerged as a priority. How utterly fortuitous. Do elaborate on these lives you've so diligently constructed, this unwavering focus. I find myself immensely intrigued by how it's all working out for you." The ensuing silence was thick and profound, confirming the accuracy of my verbal strike. When I eventually turned back, Marcus was fixedly examining his manicured fingernails, as if the answers to all his woes lay etched there. "We've encountered a few obstacles," Serafina conceded, her voice now taut, carefully modulated. "The economic climate has been rather unforgiving. Marcus's consultancy has experienced diminished activity." "Obstacles?" I repeated, my tone devoid of sympathy. "Is that the current euphemism? Because the information that has serendipitously found its way to me, and yes, darling, I still possess a surprisingly extensive network within this city, suggests your obstacles encompass a rather significant accumulation of credit card debt, a second mortgage on that impressive facade you maintain, and a consultancy that exists primarily as a glossy business card." Marcus's head snapped up, his eyes wide with a mixture of shock and indignation. "How could you possibly know?" he demanded, his voice barely a whisper. "Marcus, you severed our personal connection, not my ties to the community. Gossip, as you well know, travels further and faster than any official communique. People have been chattering for years." I returned to my seat, a deep satisfaction settling over me as I watched them both visibly deflate, shrinking into the plush velvet cushions as if trying to merge with the fabric. They had spoken of speculative ventures that crumbled, of ill-advised investments, of a lifestyle that was fundamentally unsustainable. And perhaps most tellingly, they had also illuminated the true impetus behind your abrupt decision the true reason you vanished from my life 13 years ago. Serafina's flawless complexion drained of color. "What do you mean?" I continued, my voice a silken thread of steel. "I mean, the actual motivation behind your joint decision that I was an unbearable burden. It wasn't about success or excess baggage or any of that convenient drivel you meticulously fed me." A slow, genuine smile, one that felt like the first in years, touched my lips. "It was about the sizable inheritance you mistakenly believed was forthcoming from your godfather, Elias Thorne. The one who, it turns out, held rather stringent beliefs about filial devotion and the unwavering support of one's elders." The look on Marcus's face, a grotesque tableau of dawning horror and indignation, confirmed my every suspicion. "Bingo," I whispered, barely audible. "You systematically excised me from your narrative because you were convinced Elias would recognize your independence and unburdened success by bestowing his considerable legacy upon you. Tell me, darling, how precisely did that particular strategy unfold?" Marcus's face cycled through several shades of crimson before settling on a sickly, ashen gray. Serafina, to her credit, managed a flicker of her usual composure, but I could practically see her mental abacus frantically recalculating whatever grand scheme they'd concocted in the car. "Elias, he bequeathed everything to the Willow Creek Animal Sanctuary," Marcus choked out, his voice barely a whisper. "Every solitary cent, you say? How profoundly fascinating." I made no attempt to veil my immense satisfaction. It appears Mr. Thorne harbored quite specific convictions regarding individuals who neglect their families in pursuit of perceived gain. What an unforeseen quirk of fate. Serafina found her voice first, sharp and strained. "Elena, that's ancient history. What truly matters is our present, our shared future, the essence of family mutual support." Family mutual support. I slowly enunciated, allowing the phrase to hang in the air, weighted with irony. "How remarkably rich, emanating from your lips, Serafina. Remind me, when exactly did you start considering me family? Because I distinctly recall you referring to me as the inconvenient elderly relative at one of your elaborate soirees, a relative Marcus needed to resolve before advancing his own prospects." She flinched, a visible tremor beneath her carefully applied makeup. "You weren't meant for me to overhear, of course, but I did, along with several other illuminating pronouncements about the streamlined upward trajectory your lives would adopt once the mother situation was adequately managed." I rose, moving not to photos, but to the intricately carved antique desk, my hand tracing the worn wood. For 14 years, I wrestled with self-reproach, convinced I'd somehow fallen short as a parent. that I had, in some fundamental way, failed to cultivate a son worthy of my affection. I paused, allowing my gaze to rest on them, two marble statues of discomfort. But I hadn't failed, had I? I nurtured a child who possessed inherent kindness, thoughtful inclinations, genuine generosity. The true failing was the insidious corruption that took root the moment you entered his life, Serafina. That's profoundly unfair, Mother, Marcus stammered, barely audible. Fair? You wish to dissect the concept of fair, Marcus? Fair would have been an honest conversation before you systematically severed every single tie. Fair would have been forthrightness about your mercenary motivations. Fair would have been acknowledging your mother as a sentient being, not a strategic liability to be professionally managed. We made grievous errors, Elena, Serafina interjected, her voice now sharp with a thinly veiled panic. But we are here now, poised to rectify those past transgressions. Rectify them, you say? With my hard-earned prosperity, I presume? It's not solely about the money, Mother, Marcus insisted, but his eyes betrayed him, flicking nervously around the opulent room. Oh, really? Then permit us a small psychological exercise. I retrieved my checkbook from my desk. Let's imagine I were to issue you a benevolent gift of, say, $75,000 right this moment, a substantial sum to alleviate those setbacks you so eloquently recounted. Would you accept it, express your gratitude, and depart, leaving me to my solitude? Their gazes instantly electrified, mirroring the avarice of predators spotting fresh carrion. The unequivocal answer was etched across their faces long before Marcus's practiced lips could even form a syllable. We couldn't possibly accept such a singular, magnanimous amount, he prevaricated, even as his eyes mentally allocated every dollar. Perhaps we could structure a more sustained arrangement, a long-term investment perhaps, or a loan. A loan, I intoned, my voice dripping with theatrical enthusiasm. Why, certainly, and I suppose the terms of this highly sensitive loan negotiation would necessitate your prolonged residence within my home, partaking of my pantry, and indulging in my hospitality. But of course, we are, after all, family, Serafina asserted, as if this declaration alone rendered all other considerations moot. Indeed, I concurred, a slow, predatory smile stretching across my face. We are family, and that, my dears, is precisely why what unfolds next will prove to be excruciatingly painful. I snapped the checkbook shut with a resounding thud that echoed through the room like a sharp crack of thunder. Both Marcus and Serafina visibly recoiled, their shoulders hunched, and I realized with a profound sense of satisfaction they had been breathlessly awaiting the scrape of my pen. The salient truth about family, you see, I began, settling back into my opulent armchair with the regality of a queen, is that goes both ways. True kinship, you see, is a delicate ecosystem of mutual trust and unwavering presence, not some convenient thoroughfare to be traversed only when the destination promises personal gain. Elena, we know we haven't been perfect, Marcus began, his voice a strained attempt at contrition. Perfect? A frosty laugh escaped me, cutting through the charged air like a shard of ice. Marcus, perfect would have entailed a single phone call on my birthday, or a fleeting acknowledgement of my existence. What you two orchestrated wasn't a minor oversight. It was a deliberate, surgical excision, executed with cold precision. Serafina shifted forward on the bespoke sofa, her composure fracturing, revealing the raw edge of desperation. Elena, we are willing to acknowledge our mistakes. We want to forge a better relationship going forward. Forge a better relationship, I repeated thoughtfully, my gaze unwavering. Starting precisely when? Starting the moment the grapevine whispered of my changed fortunes. How remarkably opportune that your sudden yearning for familial connection coincided exactly with my financial metamorphosis. Marcus had the decency to wince, his gaze dropping to the Persian rug, but Serafina was cast from a sterner mold. People evolve, Elena. People grow. We are not the individuals we were 13 years ago. You are quite correct about that, I agreed, a slow, chilling smile touching my lips. You are not the same people. You're older. You're financially considerably more strained, and your desperation hangs about you like a palpable aura. Yet, at your core, you remain remarkably, uncomfortably consistent. I rose and walked to the bay window again, not for the view, but to allow the ensuing silence to stretch, thick with their burgeoning discomfort. You want to know what filled my days these past 13 years? While you were diligently constructing your important lives and prioritizing your careers. Neither offered a reply, but I could feel their collective attention, hot and unnerving on my back. I educated myself. I devoured books. I enrolled in courses. I cultivated new friendships. I discovered that I possess a rather formidable intellect, especially when I'm not constantly being reminded that I'm a burden. I turned to face them, my eyes gleaming with a newfound clarity. I also cultivated a rather keen understanding of financial alchemy. Asset protection, strategic investments, legal fortifications, all became fascinating new areas of study. Marcus's expression hardened, a mask of forced incomprehension. "What precisely are you implying?" he ventured, his voice carefully neutral. "Only that my sudden prosperity didn't remain a vulnerable, unmanaged hoard, Marcus," I countered, my voice silken. "I engaged a formidable team of specialists, the kind whose expertise lies in safeguarding substantial fortunes from, shall we say, opportunistically re-emerging kin." "You retained legal counsel," Serafina murmured, her tone brittle, as if the words themselves tasted foul. "And then some," I affirmed, my smile widening. "Financial architects, legacy planners, even a rather discreet investigative agency. It's astonishing, really, what diligent research, backed by ample resources, can uncover about a person's financial landscape." You had us investigated?" Marcus stammered, his voice thin with disbelief. "Not just you, Marcus. I conducted a comprehensive audit of my entire periphery: friends, distant relatives, charitable organizations, investment opportunities. Because when unforeseen wealth arrives, one quickly discerns that avarice, like a restless spirit, seeks out every potential vulnerability." I walked back towards my armchair, but paused, choosing to remain standing. The crucial distinction, however, is that most people are transparent about their motivations. Serafina's carefully constructed facade was entirely gone now, replaced by something harder and starker, truly calculating. "What exactly are you saying, Elena?" "I'm saying that your grand entrance, complete with designer luggage and a presumption of immediate annexation of my home and finances, after 13 years of treating me as though I were a mere ghost, was a profoundly miscalculated gamble." I finally sat down, taking my time to smooth my silk skirt, to pick up my teacup, and to meet both their eyes with perfect, unyielding calm. "I'm saying that if you believe I am the same vulnerable woman you discarded all those years ago, you are about to be very disappointed." A suffocating silence descended, heavy and fraught with unspoken recriminations. Marcus looked as if his carefully composed internal world was shattering, while Serafina's eyes darted about, her mind undoubtedly mapping escape vectors. But I was far from finished. The antique long-case clock in the hall tolled 3 resonant chimes, marking the passage of an hour that felt both endless and fleeting. Indeed, time has a peculiar way of accelerating when one observes meticulously crafted illusions disintegrate. I settled my empty teacup onto its saucer with a decisive click. "So," I prompted, my voice regaining its steel, "let's dispense with the charade of familial concern. Let's speak plainly about the true objective of your visit, shall we? Not this contrived narrative of reconciliation, not your sudden apprehension for my well-being, or your purported desire for reconciliation. Let's delve into the unvarnished truth of your presence here." Marcus opened his mouth, no doubt ready to launch into another meticulously rehearsed monologue about familial devotion, but I raised my hand, a silent, authoritative gesture that halted him mid-sentence. "Before you utter another carefully constructed fabrication, permit me to share some of the rather illuminating insights my network of advisors has compiled." I reached into the sleek drawer of my minimalist side table, retrieving not a mundane manila folder, but a slim, leather-bound portfolio. Did you know, Marcus Serafina, that the intricate tapestry of individuals' financial dealings becomes remarkably transparent when one employs the right professionals and knows precisely where to direct their inquiries? Serafina's eyes, usually so composed, fixed on the portfolio as if it were a venomous viper poised to strike. For instance, I continued, opening the elegant binder with a deliberate flourish, my sources indicate that your entire consultancy enterprise, Marcus, has been little more than a sophisticated front for the past year and a half. It hasn't secured a single legitimate client in all that time, has it? Marcus's face, already pale, drained to an ashen white. How could you possibly have access to such information? He managed to gasp, his voice barely a whisper. In precisely the same manner, I've uncovered the labyrinth of high-interest credit lines, all currently maxed out, that fund your lavish pretense. The same way I know the luxury vehicle you so proudly display is actually several months from repossession, and that your dream home is perilously close to foreclosure, with its second mortgage payments alarmingly overdue. I slid a meticulously organized sheet of data from the portfolio. The same way I know you've been borrowing increasingly substantial sums from Serafina's parents, telling them it's for business expansion, when in fact it's merely to keep the lights on and the creditors momentarily at bay. You had no right, Serafina whispered, her voice tight with suppressed fury, yet lacking any genuine conviction. It was the hollow sound of someone utterly exposed. No right? I echoed, a genuine, mirthful laugh escaping me this time, resonating through the hushed room. My dear, the moment you chose to arrive at my doorstep, making demands and surveying my home as if it were already yours, you implicitly granted me every right to scrutinize your motivations. In the world you purport to inhabit, it's called due diligence. A fundamental concept you might have grasped had either of you ever operated a truly successful enterprise. Marcus slumped deeper into his armchair, collapsing like a deflated balloon. We're in profound trouble, Mother. Catastrophic trouble. He finally met my gaze, a raw desperation replacing his usual arrogance. But that still doesn't negate the fact that you are my mother. Surely that counts for something. Indeed, it does count for something, I agreed, my tone softening just a fraction. It counts for the singular opportunity I am about to extend. Exactly one. To abandon this elaborate charade, to cease the manipulation, and to be entirely unequivocally honest with me about precisely what you need and why. They exchanged a swift, almost imperceptible glance, a desperate, silent communication. Finally, Marcus straightened slightly, meeting my eyes directly. We're going to lose everything, he stated quietly, his voice devoid of its earlier bluster. The house, the cars, even Serafina's parents' life savings. It's all gone. We're on the hook for nearly $300,000, and there's simply no way out. $300,000? I repeated, allowing the staggering figure to hang in the air, weighted with the enormity of their predicament. That is a truly monumental chasm you've dug for yourselves. Bad investments, Elena, Serafina interjected, her voice strained, the carefully cultured veneer finally cracking. And our partner, a man named Leo Vance, he systematically embezzled the majority of our operational capital and vanished without a trace. By the time we discovered his deception, it was too late. For the first time since their arrival, their words carried the ring of unadorned truth. It didn't evoke my sympathy, but it certainly piqued my curiosity. And you genuinely believed that arriving here with an entourage of designer luggage and a presumption of immediate annexation was your most effective strategy for eliciting assistance? We thought, Marcus confessed slowly, his gaze dropping to the intricate patterns of the Persian rug, that if we framed it as a family reunion, as wanting to reconnect, it would be easier than admitting our utter destitution. Easier, I mused, the word dripping with quiet irony. For whom, pray tell? Marcus had the grace to wince, a faint flush creeping up his neck. For us, Mother. We thought it would be easier for us. Finally, I murmured, a slow, predatory smile touching my lips as I closed the portfolio and set it aside. A sliver of unadulterated honesty. Well, at least now we're getting somewhere. $300,000. I repeated, letting the number resonate in the silence like a death knell. That's quite an accomplishment. Most individuals require decades to accumulate such a staggering level of debt. Marcus winced again. We know how it sounds. Do you? I countered, leaning back in my armchair, every inch the unyielding matriarch. Because it sounds like two individuals who engineered a series of catastrophically misguided decisions and are now anticipating someone else will simply absorb the consequences. Tell me more about this Leo Vance, I prompted, my voice regaining its silken edge. The supposed architect of your financial downfall. Leo Vance, Serafina quickly supplied. He was Marcus's college roommate. They started the consulting firm together 5 years ago. Leo Vance, I repeated, pulling out my phone with deliberate slowness. A rather interesting name. You see, Marcus, a truly competent team of investigators has a remarkable knack for locating even the most elusive individuals. Borrow. I scrolled through my notes. Leo Vance, I began, my voice a silken ribbon of deception detection, was indeed your initial business partner. He was also, my intelligence suggests, the individual who initially flagged certain irregularities in your firm's accounting to the financial authorities, before he himself was forced to sever ties. He didn't embezzle your capital, Marcus. He was trying to prevent you from liquidating it into your own failing ventures. The silence in the opulent living room was so absolute, I could hear the intricate gears of the antique long-case clock in the hall almost hum. Marcus, who had been trying to project an air of injured innocence, seemed to deflate. That's a malicious fabrication, he stammered, though his eyes betrayed a profound tremor. Is it? I countered, a slow, unblinking gaze fixed on him. Because my advisors have unearthed a rather comprehensive police investigation file concerning your alleged business fraud, dating back nearly 9 months. The district attorney, it seems, is still weighing whether the sheer audacity of your financial mismanagement warrants immediate prosecution. It appears Leo Vance, after all, was a victim, and a rather diligent whistleblower at that. Serafina's carefully constructed composure shattered, her face draining to the color of bleached bone. Police reports. How could you possibly have access to such sensitive files? She whispered, her voice barely a breath. In precisely the same manner I've uncovered the detailed accounts of your philanthropic endeavors, I replied, a sardonic smile touching my lips. The ones where you informed your unsuspecting parents that Marcus was funding a groundbreaking, ethically dubious biotech startup, necessitating repeated and increasingly substantial angel investments from their retirement savings. Or how you secured $50,000 from 3 separate relatives, each time spinning a new, tear-jerking narrative involving either a catastrophic market crash, a phantom medical emergency, or an utterly fabricated opportunity to secure generational wealth if only they'd contribute their meager savings. I set my phone down with surgical precision. You two aren't just in dire straits, you're a pair of opportunistic fraudsters. We're not criminals, Marcus protested, but the conviction in his voice had vanished, replaced by a hollow echo. Really? I leaned forward, my tone chillingly calm. What would you label systematically fabricating a dire illness to extort money from your own aging parents? What would you call deliberately bleeding dry your own company, using your partner as a convenient scapegoat, just as it teetered on the brink? What would you call orchestrating this grand theatrical return after 13 years of treating me as a ghost, all to manipulate me into underwriting your fraudulent lifestyle? For the first time, a stark, undeniable fear gleamed in their eyes. Excellent. Genuine fear, I'd learned, was the most honest emotion. We never intended for things to escalate this far, Serafina whispered, her gaze darting about the room as if searching for an escape hatch. But they did, didn't they? I retorted, rising and walking back to the bay window, my back to them, allowing the enormity of my words to settle. And now you're here, in my sanctuary, expecting me to absolve you of the inevitable consequences of your own egregious choices. Here's what precisely is going to happen next. I could feel them holding their breath, a tangible tension in the air, awaiting the pronouncement of their fate. The afternoon sun cast long golden streaks across the polished floor, illuminating motes of dust dancing in the air. a tableau of serene beauty concealing such raw, volatile ugliness. "You are going to gather your designer luggage," I stated, my voice unwavering, still gazing out at the meticulously manicured rose garden. "And you are going to vacate my home. But before you do, we will conclude this conversation with a thorough reckoning concerning honesty, responsibility, and the true cost of deceit." "Mother, please," Marcus pleaded, his voice cracking. "I am not finished," I interrupted, turning to face them. Their faces were etched with genuine panic, stripped bare of their practiced artifice. You see, the rather fascinating outcome of retaining a team of exceptionally thorough investigators is the abundance of unexpected and often inconvenient truths one uncovers. For instance, I discovered I wasn't the only family member you so cavalierly severed ties with 13 years ago. Marcus's Adam's apple bobbed convulsively like a distressed buoy. What do you mean?" "I mean your Aunt Beatrice. Do you recall her? Your father's elder sister? The one who generously contributed to your law school tuition and tirelessly sent you thoughtful gifts every year until, quite abruptly, you ceased all communication." Serafina shot Marcus a look so venomous it could have scorched paint from the walls. "It turns out," I continued, savoring each syllable, "that Beatrice, a woman of remarkable tenacity, attempted to reach out to you numerous times after your sudden disappearance from my life. She was concerned, not just for my welfare, but for yours. She eventually confided in me that you informed her quite brusquely to respect your new boundaries before you summarily blocked her number from your devices. We were establishing personal space," Serafina interjected defensively, her voice taut. "Personal space?" I nodded, a faint disquieting smile on my lips. "Is that what you label it when you learn a benevolent relative might be considering you in their will? So you briefly re-engage, just long enough to ensure your inclusion, and then vanish once more?" Marcus's complexion cycled through an alarming spectrum of reds and purples. How do you know about Beatrice's will?" "She updated it last month," I replied simply, my gaze unwavering. "And I believe you'll find your name conspicuously absent now. Apparently, Aunt Beatrice, a woman of impeccable moral rectitude, holds a rather dim view of individuals who forsake their family for perceived financial gain, only to reappear like hungry vultures when personal misfortune strikes." "You turned her against us," Marcus accused, his voice rising in an ugly crescendo. "I didn't need to turn her against you, Marcus," I stated calmly, walking back towards my armchair but choosing to remain standing. "You accomplished that feat all by yourselves. Beatrice and I, you see, have been enjoying weekly conversations for the past 3 years. She, in fact, was the one who initially suggested I engage the services of professional investigators when news of my recent windfall became public. She posited quite astutely that I should be vigilant. So, this wasn't some sudden, convenient change of heart?" Serafina's voice was barely a tremor, a fragile veneer of her usual poise. "This entire confrontation was orchestrated." "Orchestrated?" Elena echoed, a slow, deliberate smile touching her lips. "I prefer the term strategically fortified. After Aunt Beatrice's insightful counsel, it became abundantly clear that I needed to prepare for precisely this scenario. She understood that you two would, eventually, circle back, drawn by the scent of newfound prosperity, armed with tales of rediscovered affection and fabricated need. She merely underestimated the sheer audacity of your return. The image of her aunt, usually so gentle, now a strategic ally, brought a deeper satisfaction to Elena. Marcus, who had been attempting to regain some semblance of composure, now visibly wilted into the sofa's plush cushions. "We genuinely need assistance, Mother," he finally conceded, his voice raw and stripped of its usual bravado. "Assistance?" Elena acknowledged, her gaze unwavering. "Indeed, you do. Professional intervention, therapy for the deeply ingrained manipulative tendencies, rigorous financial rehabilitation, and quite possibly a robust legal defense team. What you emphatically do not require is a generous benefactor to simply paper over the chasms you've so meticulously excavated, only to allow you to resume your destructive trajectory." "So you're simply going to watch us collapse?" Serafina demanded, a hint of genuine panic now lacing her voice, pushing it dangerously close to hysteria. "I'm going to ensure you fully confront the edifice of consequences you've painstakingly erected," Elena calmly corrected. She retrieved a sleek, minimalist folder from the side table, its contents potentially a lifeline or an anchor for their sinking ship. "After all these years of agonizing over my perceived failures as a mother, this is my opportunity to truly witness the mettle of the individuals you've become." She held up a single sheet. "This is a referral for a highly specialized attorney, one who excels in complex financial restructuring, and crucially, avoiding incarceration for those who have overextended themselves. He is exceptionally adept and equally expensive." Marcus's eyes, previously clouded with defeat, flickered with a desperate spark of hope. "You would underwrite his fees?" "I stated he was expensive, Marcus," Elena clarified, a subtle arch of her eyebrow emphasizing her point. "Not that I'd be footing the bill in perpetuity. However, I am prepared to offer a solitary lifeline, a non-negotiable proposition. Should you genuinely desire a path back from this precipice, here are the terms." She placed the document on the polished coffee table between them. "I will extend a loan, a precisely delineated sum, to cover the initial retainer for this attorney, and to enroll you both in an intensive, legitimate debt counseling and management program. This is not a bailout for your current lifestyle, nor a bottomless well. It is solely to prevent your imminent legal and financial incineration, and to afford you the opportunity for an authentic fresh start." "How much?" Serafina interjected, her greed momentarily overriding her fear. "$25,000, Elena stated plainly, "precisely half for the legal representation, the other half for the rehabilitation program." She settled back into her armchair, the quiet authority in her posture unwavering. "But these funds come with stringent, non-negotiable covenants." "Covenants?" Marcus muttered, suspicion etched on his face. "Firstly, you both embark on intensive, individual psychotherapy. Not some superficial couples counseling designed to mask deeper issues, but profound introspective work to unravel the psychological pathways that led you to systematically exploit every familial connection. And before you even think of protesting," Elena raised a single, commanding finger, "there's more. Secondly, you will execute full restitution to every single individual you have defrauded. Your relatives, Serafina's parents, any clients you intentionally misled or overcharged, every single person will be made whole." "That's preposterous," Serafina exclaimed, her voice cracking. "We don't possess that kind of capital." "Which brings me, my dear, to condition number 3, Elena continued unperturbed. "You will both secure legitimate, steady employment. Not the ephemeral consultancy charades, not the entrepreneurial ventures that masquerade as productivity, but fail to generate an income. You will find real jobs, and you will maintain them, faithfully, until every last penny of your illicit gains is repaid." Marcus gaped at her, his expression a mixture of disbelief and utter horror. "You're speaking of years, decades of work." "I'm speaking of the remainder of your lives, Marcus," Elena corrected, her voice soft but imbued with an iron certainty, "because that is the true measure of effort required to reconstruct trust when it has been shattered into such irreparable fragments." "And if we decline to accept your generous conditions?" Serafina challenged, her eyes narrowed. Elena's smile, now devoid of any warmth, was a chilling spectacle. "Then you depart from this home with nothing, save the crushing weight of your current predicament, and I will personally ensure that every single person you have ever manipulated, every relative you've conned, every friend you've betrayed, receives a meticulously detailed dossier outlining the precise, unvarnished truth of your character and your exploits. Do you truly wish to gamble with that exposure?" "You wouldn't dare," Marcus whispered, his face paling even further. "Try me, Marcus," Elena challenged, her gaze like tempered steel. "I have had 13 years to contemplate the nuances of consequences, to meticulously plan this moment. Do not for one second mistake my composure for a lack of resolve." The antique long-case clock chimed 4 times, its resonant tones marking the passage of 2 arduous hours. Elena watched with a profound sense of vindication as the dawning realization of their utter defeat washed over both their faces, stripping away their last vestiges of arrogance. "We require some time to deliberate," Serafina finally managed, her voice hollow. "No," Elena stated, her voice sharp and uncompromising. "You require time to accept reality. There is no middle ground here, no convenient blend of paths. You accept my terms, rigorously rebuild, or you pursue your ill-fated search for effortless gain elsewhere. But understand this, neither of those latter options will unfold under my roof." Marcus seemed on the verge of tears, his carefully constructed facade collapsing into the image of a bewildered child. For a fleeting beat, a pang of something akin to pity stirred within me, but it quickly dissipated. "Hold on," I interjected, just as they began to shift, a silent signal to gather their belongings. "Before you fully immerse yourselves in this deliberation process, there's one final, rather pertinent detail you should both be privy to." I moved to my antique desk and retrieved a slender, uncreased envelope from a hidden compartment. It bore the letterhead of a Denver-based law firm and was postmarked precisely 3 weeks prior, its arrival coinciding rather perfectly with the public announcement of my improved circumstances. I held the envelope between my thumb and forefinger, a loaded silence filling the room. "This isn't from me, per se," I explained, my voice steady. "It's from an attorney, representing someone who has been rather diligently attempting to locate both of you for a considerable period." The blood visibly drained from their faces, leaving them ghostly pale. "Who?" Serafina managed to whisper, her voice barely a thread. "Silas Croft," I stated plainly, breaking the seal on the envelope with a crisp tear and sliding out the single sheet of paper within. "Surely you remember Silas, don't you, Marcus? Your erstwhile business partner, the one you so vehemently accused of systematically siphoning funds from your joint venture." Marcus's hands were trembling now, visibly, involuntarily. What does he want?" he stammered, his eyes wide. "He wants precisely what's owed to him," I replied, my voice devoid of inflection. "The $50,000 you illicitly transferred from the company's operating capital before you conveniently dissolved the partnership. Funds he only uncovered were missing after his own accountant meticulously audited the books, following your very public and very false accusations against him." That's not how it happened," Marcus protested, his voice a mere thread of sound, utterly lacking conviction. "Isn't it?" I countered, a chilling smile playing on my lips. "Because, according to Silas's attorney, he has been diligently collaborating with the district attorney's office for months, meticulously constructing a rather compelling case against both of you. He was, apparently, holding out hope that some latent moral compass might compel you to voluntarily make restitution." I folded the letter with deliberate precision. "Upon learning of my fortunate acquisition," I continued, "Silas apparently speculated that a sudden influx of family capital might, perhaps, inspire you to finally do the right thing." Serafina was now gripping the arm of the antique sofa so tightly, her knuckles shone stark white against her tanned skin. What does that mean?" she demanded, her voice tight with barely contained panic. "It means, my dears," I elucidated, placing the letter back into its envelope, "that Silas Croft is extending precisely the same option I am, albeit with a far more immediate and unforgiving timeline. You can make full restitution for your embezzlement and publicly accept accountability for your actions, or he will proceed with pressing criminal charges. The sole distinction is this: his deadline expires tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" Marcus repeated, his voice cracking, a high-pitched, desperate sound. "Tomorrow?" "Indeed," I affirmed, my gaze unwavering. "You have until 5 p.m. tomorrow to contact his attorney and arrange for the complete return of his funds." I watched them, their faces a tableau of utter defeat, as the last vestiges of their carefully cultivated composure disintegrated. "So, you see, my initial offer wasn't simply a matter of family reconciliation or even a nuanced lesson in the inexorable mechanics of consequence," I stated, my voice softening just enough to convey the gravity. Ultimately, it was about safeguarding you from a far more formidable and far less forgiving institution. The ensuing silence was absolute, a heavy, suffocating blanket. I could almost hear the frantic whirring of their minds, desperately scrambling for an escape route, a loophole, an angle they had somehow overlooked. "You planned this," Serafina accused, her voice raw, stripped of its former polish. "You've been in contact with Silas?" "I have," I calmly conceded. "He reached out to me the very day my sudden fortune became public knowledge. He was curious if I possessed any awareness of the rather dubious financial maneuvers my son had executed, and more pointedly, whether I harbored any inclination to clean up the mess, as he so delicately put it." "And what was your response?" Serafina pressed, her eyes narrowed. "I informed him," I said, a faint, resolute smile touching my lips, "that my willingness to intervene was entirely contingent upon my son's demonstrated readiness to shoulder the full, unvarnished consequences of his own choices." I rose and walked towards the mantelpiece, my fingers tracing the silver frame of an old photograph. A younger Marcus, beaming with a fleeting, genuine pride at his college graduation. "Silas Croft is a decent man, Marcus," I stated, my voice quiet now, yet still resonating with steel. "He did not deserve the duplicity you inflicted upon him, nor did your Aunt Beatrice or Serafina's trusting parents, or any of the countless others you so cavalierly exploited." Marcus was openly weeping now, tears carving clean paths through the dust of his shame. I never intended for things to spiral this far," he choked out, his voice thick with unfeigned misery. "But they have, Marcus," I countered softly, turning to face him fully. "They most profoundly have. And now, at this very precipice, you must confront the profound question of who you intend to be from this moment forward." I replaced the photograph on the mantel and met their gazes squarely. "You can accept my framework of assistance and Silas's conditional leniency, commit to the arduous labor of rectification, and perhaps, just perhaps, reclaim a sliver of the integrity you've so systematically squandered. Or you can persist in this futile flight from accountability, continue your deceit, and ceaselessly chase the phantom of effortless solutions to the catastrophes you yourselves engineered." "Some choice," Serafina muttered, a bitter curl to her lip. "It is the only choice that ever truly matters," I affirmed, my voice ringing with absolute certainty. "The profound, terrifying, and ultimately liberating choice to finally embrace honesty." Finally, they looked at each other, and in that silent exchange, I could perceive the crushing weight of over a decade of disastrous decisions, of intricate webs of deceit, and the bitter, unassailable truth of their imminent reckoning. Elena found herself in her sun-drenched study, observing the intricate patterns the morning light cast across her antique Persian rug. She wasn't actively waiting for the phone, but rather existing in a state of tranquil anticipation, a serene counterpoint to the storm she knew was brewing elsewhere. Just as the first rays of dawn stretched across the oak floor, the shrill ring of the antique rotary phone on her mahogany desk cut through the quiet. Marcus's voice, raspy and edged with the undeniable exhaustion of a sleepless night, confirmed her expectation. "Mother," he began, the usual bravado entirely absent, "we accept everything, all your terms." Elena's gaze swept over the pristine garden outside, a tableau of quiet growth. "And Serafina?" she prompted, her voice even. "Yes," he affirmed. "Serafina agrees. We want to truly make amends." Elena sat her herbal teacup back on its saucer with a delicate clink. "Before we move forward, Marcus, I need an answer to one uncompromising question," she stated, her voice even. "Had fate not intervened with this windfall, had I remained the seemingly inconvenient burden in my modest dwelling, would you ever have initiated contact? Would the thought of genuine reconciliation ever have crossed your mind?" The silence that followed stretched, taut and brittle, until Marcus's strained confession finally broke it. "No," he admitted, his voice barely a whisper. "I don't believe I would have. I was consumed by a suffocating mix of shame for my actions, an arrogant pride that prevented any admission of wrongdoing, and a paralyzing fear that your forgiveness would forever be beyond my reach. A poignant ache settled in Elena's chest, a testament to the raw truth of his admission. It was an honesty she had yearned for, a painful catharsis. "Thank you, Marcus," she responded, her voice softer than it had been in years. "Thank you for that truth. Now I have a truth for you." A pause. "I forgive you, not for the expediency of your current predicament, nor solely for this moment of apparent remorse. I forgive you because the corrosive weight of carrying 13 years of bitterness and resentment was far more detrimental to my spirit than it ever was to yours." She picked up her teacup, her hand surprisingly steady. "My forgiveness, however, is not a restoration of trust. Trust is an edifice painstakingly rebuilt, brick by consistent brick, over years. It demands unwavering commitment, genuine introspection, the arduous labor of therapy, and tangible proof of transformation, not merely the hollow promise of it." A beat. "Do you truly grasp the depth of that commitment, Marcus?" His reply, though quiet, carried a new conviction. "Yes, Mother, I understand." And for the first time, Elena sensed a genuine resonance in his words. "Very well," Elena confirmed. "I will contact the specialized attorney this morning and Silas Croft's counsel this afternoon. You and Serafina are to be present in their offices as directed before the close of business today." She gazed out at the blossoming wisteria cascading from her pergola, a vibrant tapestry against the morning sky. "And Marcus, let this be unequivocally clear. This is not merely a second chance, it is the only chance. Should you falter, should deceit resurface, should you inflict further harm on any soul I hold dear, consider yourself irrevocably severed from my life, now and forever." The gravity of her words hung heavy in the air. "I understand, Mother," he replied, the words a raw acknowledgement of his precarious position. As she disconnected the call, Elena remained in the sunroom, the echoes of their conversation reverberating through her. She mused on the intricate distinctions between absolution and endorsement. Conventional wisdom might fault her for such rigidity with her own flesh and blood, advocating unconditional familial allegiance. But such counsel came from those unacquainted with the hollow ache of a decade spent dissecting perceived parental failings, the lacerating sting of deliberate abandonment, or the arduous quest to reforge an identity once deemed utterly dispensable. Her journey had taught her an undeniable truth. Love unmoored by firm boundaries was merely apprehension cloaked in sentimentality. Her phone chimed, a text from her sister, Beatrice. "Word reached me. Marcus returned. What transpired?" Elena typed her reply, a concise summary of the day's events. "A path has been offered. Its deservingness remains to be proven." Her sister's next message simply asked, "And you?" Elena surveyed the sun-drenched room, her haven, the meticulously constructed life she had forged from the ashes of former expectations. This was a realm where her choices reigned supreme, where boundaries were sacrosanct, and where the phantom echo of begging for acceptance at a table rightfully hers was a distant memory. "I am well," she typed, a profound sense of peace settling over her. "More than well, I am sovereign." 2 years unfolded. Marcus, through diligent labor and profound self-reflection, painstakingly settled every debt, every penny of his illicit appropriations. Serafina, divested of her grand, get-rich-quick fantasies, discovered an unexpected acumen for nurturing a modest, ethical enterprise. And Elena? She continued to awaken each morning in her meticulously curated home, inhabiting a life defined by her own terms, a quiet understanding blossoming within her. True affluence resided not in the arbitrary numbers of a lottery ticket, but in the unwavering conviction of her own worth and the steadfast refusal to ever again diminish herself for another's convenience. The unexpected fortune, of course, remained a pleasant amenity. This account concludes here. Ultimately, Elena's saga served as a testament to a profound, often understated truth, that the quiet, unwavering assertion of one's own convictions truly always prevails.